I want to welcome Dr. Keith Darrow, founder of the Hearing and Brain
Centers
Center
of New England.
Yes,
yes.
That's great. And also, you have a foundation that we want to talk about as
Correct,
well.
yes. So the Hearing and Brain Centers of New England, that is our private practice serving all the communities of central Massachusetts and beyond.
Okay.
In addition, we also have a nonprofit organization I started about 3 years ago called the Healthy Hearing Foundation.
Okay, tell me first about your center. What do you do with the center?
So at the Hearing and Brain Centers, so it was about 5 years ago, and we just celebrated we had a big party for our 5th year anniversary, which was nice, and the mayor came out and the sheriff, so there was we had a good time sort of coming together, acknowledging all the lives that we've changed in central Massachusetts. So I did my PhD work at MIT and Harvard, and I was at Mass Eye and Ear for many, many years. And then I moved out to central Massachusetts, and I wanted to bring basically the hearing healthcare background that I had to central Massachusetts. I felt like it was something that was deserved out here, something that there's plenty of people out here, and that we could bring those services. And our basic goal is we are about medically treating hearing loss. So what we learned in about the past decade or so, and the reason for the name change, we understand that hearing has a significant impact on cognitive function. In fact, there's been a multitude of studies showing that untreated hearing loss can significantly increase the risk of developing memory loss, cognitive decline, and dementia by as much as 200 to 500%.
Wow.
So it's a real significant risk factor for poor health as we age. And our goal, right, so we have a thorough evaluation. It's not painful, but our test is basically aimed at what is your degree of hearing loss? And we know that once you hit 60, about 50% of people will have hearing loss. Once you get over 70, about 2/3. It's a genetic fact of life. We all get hearing loss as we get older. So that's part of the test. But then we have a thorough cognitive evaluation where we want to understand how hearing loss is impacting your brain, right? I mean, that's the organ that matters, right? That's the organ that keeps us going. And we now know that treating hearing loss can really improve cognitive health.
Right. And the foundation ties into that in what way?
It does, because there's no reason to hide behind the fact that the treatment of hearing loss has a cost associated with it, right? There's only so much I can do. I can't get Congress and politics and insurance companies to change the way they operate. As of now, very few, if any, actually provide benefit for the medical treatment of hearing loss. We've certainly done our best to make it affordable, right? I'm proud that we are the most affordable practice pretty much in all of New England, providing the highest level of service. But there are still people that get lost in the mix, right? It's not fair that somehow treating hearing loss is a luxury, and it's only for those who can afford it. So through our foundation, we are helping countless lives in central Massachusetts, beyond. Part of my foundation has partnered with the Sound of Life, which is a national organization, and we've done trips across the country helping people to hear better, helping to treat hearing loss for those who can't afford it.
Oh, okay. So how would somebody be able to access your foundation or apply to your foundation?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So at our practice, so essentially you would come into the Hearing and Brain Centers, and it is a sort of sister organization, right? And so we'll sit down and we'll talk about, here's the medical recommendation, here's what we need to do. The next question that comes up is essentially, how do we afford this, right? And it's done on a case-by-case basis. There is an application process. You can call the office to learn more about it, okay? It's 508-753-8155. And you can get more information about the foundation, about the Hearing and Brain Centers, and see what would be right for you. And we help our patients.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is, all of healthcare is expensive.
It is, and it's only going one direction.
And it's only going one
Yeah.
direction, and fewer of us are able to afford what we really need. You know, we end up taking what we can get, and often that's a poor substitute for what we really need.
Exactly. And I've noticed this trend for a while, right? If you study the economics, most people, the average American, doesn't even have more than $400 per month to spend on an extra expense. And we know that as we get older, we tend to have less and less money
Sure.
because
I was
we
gonna
stop
say that you're
working,
doing pretty
right?
well if you have $400 a month.
Yeah, so we've designed monthly programs, $175 and below, to help our patients to afford treatment. And when that even becomes a problem, you know what I tell my patients? I can't make a hearing problem become a financial problem. And in that situation, that's when we talk to the foundation and we go through that application process. Because to me, saying no or rejecting medical treatment is really not an option if it's going to be about price. We have to fix that.
And then I wanted to also be able to ask you about your book. You wrote a book.
I did, and it was really the encouragement of my partner who said, you know, Keith, I've traveled the country, I've been in almost every state, and we're doing these live events, 100+ people at each one, and they all tend to have a lot of the same questions and the same worries and the same concerns. And he said, why don't you put it in a book? There are 42 million people who live with untreated hearing loss. You can't talk to all of them, right?
That's an astounding number, by the way.
It is. It's actually the third most chronic condition affecting seniors, and unfortunately the least treated medical condition, right? So we really do have to change this. And since I can't talk to everyone, I decided, okay, fine, I'll write the book. And what I'm most proud of is under 30 days, it rose to be a #1 bestseller on Amazon.com.
Oh, wow. And the name of the book again is?
Stop Living in Isolation.
Okay.
And for people in our community, so I basically brokered a deal with the publishing company. If a patient goes through my practice, they get a free copy of the book.
Oh, cool.
So if you go to our website, hearingandbraincenters.com, you'll see there's a little click button there to get a free copy of the book.
Oh, wow.
If you want to go on to Amazon, because all proceeds do go to the foundation, that's fine too, but you can get a free copy and get information.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah.
And in the little time that we have left, people with hearing loss, of that 42 million, how many of those folks are seniors and how many are younger?
So we use the word older adults now.
Oh, I like that.
Apparently, we're not allowed to say
like that very
seniors
much,
anymore.
actually, yes.
A very large percentage, right? Over half the people between 60 and 70, and the number just keeps going up. It's in our genetic code. It's going to happen as you get older, and so the best treatment is the early treatment. Like any medical disorder, right? You want to catch it early and treat it early. That's what I tell all my patients.
All right,
Yeah.
great. But again, the website for people to go to for more information?
Hearingandbraincenters.com, and there you can get all information, whether it be about the foundation, to get a free copy of the book, book an appointment, just find out more about hearing healthcare and how important it is.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Yeah.
This is really important information.
It
That
is.
number is astounding, 42 million people. And we'll be right back. Hi, I'm here today with Maureen Sergi, Executive Director of Elder Services of the Worcester area. Thank you for coming. You serve the Greater Shrewsbury, Greater Worcester, number of communities in the area. And there are a lot of different things that, and the two topics I wanted to talk about with you today are your information referral program, and then something that you do with more of the disabled population regardless of age. So let's talk first about your information referral program, because it's a gateway for everything else that you do.
Certainly. So Elder Services of Worcester area, I'll just start by quickly saying we were created by the state as an alternative to nursing home placement 45 years ago. So we certainly have expanded our services and our programs over the years, and as the needs of the local community change, we really need to be able to respond to that. So the first stop is our information and referral department, where we have 3 full-time specialists who are able to answer phone calls that might be as simple as, can you give me some phone numbers of hairdressers who might make home visits? Or it could be, we think mom needs a nursing home, can you help us? And the job of the information and referral specialist is to really sort through each individual's concerns and needs, and then give information on options that might be available in the community. Oftentimes, it's one of the programs of services provided by Elder Services of Worcester area, which is community-based services to really come into the home or to be available to people in the community to allow them to remain living independently for as long as possible. So yes, our name is Elder Services of Worcester area, but as the community changes, we've needed to expand the expertise that we have. We've got wonderful expertise at getting into a home, doing an assessment, doing a person-centered assessment, so for each individual that looks a little different, coming up with a care plan and helping to get that care plan implemented. The federal government in recent years recognized that we need to be more efficient, that there are elders certainly in need of long-term supports, but there are also younger people with disabilities who are in need of those same types of support. So it doesn't make sense to have silos of care, but it makes sense for us to really be able to respond to whatever that need is and whatever the age of that person who needs those services. So we have formed a local Aging and Disability Resource Consortium of Central Mass, where the Elder Network has come together with the Independent Living Center for Living and Working.
Yes.
Yeah. So the idea is that we have staff that are available to meet with anybody in need of services, do a real person-centered interview and conversation to determine what somebody's goals are, and then to help support those goals by providing resources or perhaps providing services. Along with that, Elder Services serves about 1,000 people through what's called the PCA program. And that's a mass health program that allows an individual or a family to hire their own worker, giving more control to that person
about personal care attendance.
Exactly. When that care is received and who receives it and how that is done. It's a wonderful option for people in our local area. We also have services that are available through agencies that Elder Services of Worcester contracts with, which is also an important option for them.
Sure.
We do some work with another mass health program called One Care, which is again that similar model of providing supportive services as part of a person's total care. It's part of their medical care. There's a recognition that what happens in the home is often has a greater impact on somebody's health and their health outcomes than perhaps a doctor's visit or even a hospital visit.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's certainly a move towards integrating care, not only for elders, but for anybody in need of those long-term services and supports.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you're working together with independent living or centers for independent living, because that's a big goal. And I think that the information referral piece is so important, because people as we age don't want to give up their indendence.
Correct.
So it's hard to make that call, oh, I need a little help doing this, or I need a little help with transportation or whatever, because you feel like you're sort of going in one direction that you never really wanted to do. And the personal care attendant programs can be wonderful programs.
We've also found that it helps us make sure that we're meeting the needs of a diverse population, so that if somebody speaks a different language or has cultural issues that are really of concern to them and might not make it easy for them to have a stranger come into their home, they're able to hire somebody that speaks that same language, and that they trust to come in.
That's a huge point.
That's been a wonderful service to be able to provide to people, to make sure that we're reaching as many people as we can.
And in most parts of the country, but in Central Mass, that's a huge and growing challenge, because there are so many different cultures involved in it, and as having spent a lot of my life in nonprofit management, if you're trying your best to deliver help, it may not be perceived in the way that you intend it to be. So something like the personal care attendant program can overcome that particular challenge for some people.
That's right. We have staff that speak over 10 different languages, because we do our best to make sure that our services are culturally and linguistically appropriate for anybody in need. So it's important for us to look at local communities and see whether there are emerging populations that we need to be prepared to provide services to.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And that's so important now. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. We're going to have you come back and talk some more about your other programs, but I appreciate you coming today, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm here with Joanne Griffin, president of the Central Mass, I want to get this right, Disaster Animal Response Team.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and bringing.
This is Dylan. and he's an Australian Shepherd, obviously. He's one of our ambassadors for the team. Both he and Duff, who is a rescue from Kansas, way out in Kansas, from Kansas Corgi Connection. They are ambassadors for the team. They often go to a lot of public events with us when we go out and do public education to encourage people to come to the booth, and,
Sure.
and then we can teach them what we have.
Sure. Well, tell me a little bit about what you do, what the organization does, because I think it's a little different than what I had originally thought. So learning more about you has been really interesting.
A lot of people want to think that we're a rescue. We go out and we rescue animals. And while we have people that are on our team who do search and rescue, and go out and do that, like the fancy, what we call the fancy stuff, going out into the boats and rescuing animals when there's a disaster. Most of what we do is local stuff for rescue or setting up emergency shelters.
Okay.
We're thinking of ourselves, if you can think of it more in terms of we're the animal part of the Red Cross.
Okay.
And actually, that's how this team, DART team in Central Mass, got started. I've been a Red Cross volunteer since Hurricane Andrew. I'm a licensed social worker by trade and usually do critical incident work. And so as a disaster mental health person, we saw an increasing number of people in the Red Cross that were having problems with their animals during the disasters, whether it's fires or floods or hurricanes or whatever we had here. And so it started way back then, and then when Katrina hit with the Pets Act that came out, which says that every municipality in the country must have a plan for pet owners to be able to evacuate with their animals.
Because I found that interesting. Just talking to you before we were on air, I always wondered why people would leave their pets behind, and because I never would.
Right.
But you were explaining that in Katrina, that people weren't allowed to bring their pets, which I would have stayed.
Yeah,
And the heck with you, I'm staying with my dog if that's the case.
Exactly. There's a couple of sayings that have come out. One is that don't forget, take your pet, and another one is if we go, you go. But the reality of it is that, so what happened to Katrina is people would be swimming for miles with their dogs that had been in these awful waters during that, and then they'd be refused to get on a bus or refused to get wherever they were trying to go. And so the Pets Act got established. And so the Pets Act says that every community in the United States must have a plan. And so we are a nonprofit DART team. DART, again, stands for Disaster Animal Response Team. We are disaster workers first and animal people second. And when we do our training, it's kind of a little discouraging because either are people that come on and they really want to help animals, and we do that, but we tell them we're really helping the pet owners. And we're helping municipalities who have to be concerned with public safety because like you said, you won't leave without your pets, so I wouldn't want to either. I don't. But I can cause a public safety hazard because I'm willing to run into the fire and try to get my pet. And so we help with that. We are in several communities or states, they have different ways of going about it. In this state, we fall under what's called the EFS 11, which is the MEMA category for animal disaster services.
That's Mass Emergency Management Agency.
Yes. And it falls, and animal control officers now are supposed to be running the lead for this, but of course we know animal control officers are very busy.
Oh, they're understaffed and underfunded.
And ours, for instance, in our area has 5 or 6 towns that he has to cover. So we really aid the animal control officers, the emergency management. The Red Cross calls us when they've got a fire to assist. We've supplied the Red Cross, by the way, with like bowls and portable crates. Now our chapter here in Central Mass. So that's what we do. We train people up. Right now we're primarily a training organization. We do respond. We have lots of trailers all over Central Mass.
Okay.
We're blessed that Public Health and Homeland Security central region have equipped us with good equipment, and so we can respond. And we have currently approximately 170 volunteers.
Wow, oh, that's great.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
And the funding is for equipment primarily that you receive?
Yeah, we are a 501c3, so we don't get cash other than by telling people that we need donations.
Okay.
Or going out and doing some fundraising. We do a lot of public events every year. We do about 20 public events, including Pet Rock and a lot of things. Coming up on May 19th, we're going to be at the Tri-State firefighters.
Oh, sure, because you
something.
would deal with firefighters.
Yeah,
sure.
we deal with firefighters
Sure.
a lot, so we're going to be at their rally that they're going to have in Webster, and we're looking for people help us there.
Sure.
Typically what we do is we have a booth, we go out, and we tell people about how to be personally prepared for you and your animal. What do you have to have in a go kit in order to be ready if you had to evacuate?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, but I never thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you think about what papers, that I might get out of the safe or whatever if I have time.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't think about beyond your wallet.
Right.
Your pet's going to need some things too, and
Right.
if they're on medication in particular, those kinds of needs.
Exactly, exactly. And so we're also teaching them, well, what do we do? It was years ago, I can never forget, until we had the tornado, the ice storm, and some of the hurricanes that we've responded to in Central Mass. Obviously, this is Central Mass. It's not Broward County, Florida. It's not Louisiana.
Well, we're grateful for that,
Well-
actually, in many respects. So I'm grateful for that. But, and I used to serve on a Red Cross board 100 years ago, and it's part of disaster planning, where your shelters are. I mean, the ice storms alone in Worcester created havoc for a lot of people who had to go someplace because they went for a long period of time without heat.
And we were blessed to be called by Fitchburg, actually. I don't know
Okay.
if people remember, but it was on Channel 4, Channel 7. We were interviewed for that because the public health officer, the seniors in a high-rise in Fitchburg were freezing. And they had
okay.
to be evacuated. And they were all saying, I'm not going without
Sure.
my Muffy,
Sure.
And so in order to accommodate and get them out, because it was a public safety issue, public health had to make a call, and so they set up an animal shelter for us
Which makes sense. I mean, I just,
to run.
yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and yet it's one of those things that people don't think about.
No.
But you're
no,
right,
they
in a
don't.
shelter, traditional Red Cross shelter, you didn't really plan back, this goes back 30 years, but you didn't plan so much for where their animals were going to go.
Well,
but
not
you
only,
need to.
not only that, but in Red Cross shelters, and that still exists, and I'm a grateful member of Red Cross too, but they have their guidelines, which
Right.
because of allergies and health and
Correct.
fear.
Yeah, not everybody is able to be around or wants to be around even.
Right,
Animals.
right.
That's true.
But they've been, especially our Central Mass shelter, and a lot of them, because we've had so many disasters over these last few decades, that people have had to get a little bit more flexible. But typically for a Red Cross shelter, we would still be in a hallway or somewhere they accommodate something. Emergency management has to come up with some plan. And typically your shelters are run either by Red Cross, they're run by the local CERT teams, community emergency response teams, emergency managers, or others that have been designated to set those up. Some towns have been great. They have an idea about where we're going to go if the incident happens, and we try to do pre-planning with them. But that's typically what we do.
That's fantastic, because that
Yeah.
meets a real need, and yet you do have to keep it separate because allergies and other issues. So that's great. That's great. Well, this has been very enlightening. I did not really know the scope of what you did. I too, when I saw the name, I thought more, well, you go to a flood
We go
or
out and
something and you
rescue
go
them.
rescue them, and that's a part of it. But there's so much more, and I think that's really great.
We have a real need, if I can, before we close. But we do have a need. We just trained 15 more people this last week, including some tough students, which
Oh,
we were
great.
blessed by. But we do have a real need for people to help us out at some of our public education events, to be at a booth. Sometimes we also do fundraising, which is to run an agility course, and that's fun.
Sure.
But we have, for instance, the Tags for Tails program coming up, which is our annual big fundraiser, which is basically we resell tag stuff,
Oh,
tag
okay,
sale.
sure.
So we're taking donations, and we're looking for people that can pick them up and bring them to our Uxbridge location that we have for that, and then to help us previous to that for pricing, and also to help us the day of.
Okay.
It's in June. It's June 15th.
Okay, so there's lots of volunteer opportunities, and we'll be running along the bottom of this interview the information, contact information. If you've got any interest, to contact you. And this sounds great. I really
You
appreciate
do have to
coming.
be 18 to be a responder. I
Right.
just wanted to say that, but
But you don't have to be to do a lot of the other
no,
public
that's
education
great.
things.
And thank you for having
Oh,
Duff.
thank you. They
Duff and Dylan.
settled right down and enjoyed themselves, I think. And thank you very much for coming. This was really
Okay, well,
enlightening.
thank you very much for having us.
And we'll be right back. Hoping that today we treat everybody we meet with kindness, respect, and tolerance. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.